Good afternoon. I'm Stephen Briggs, and I'm going to be doing my video presentation on big business. And I thought I'd take you on a ride. I want you to come along with me as I want to show you some of the things that has transpired in business since 1865. As you know, I may not be able to continue to look at the camera, but I want you to be able to hear the history behind big business. As you know, 1865, we're coming to the end of the Civil War. And coming to the end of the Civil War, we were introduced to the Gilded Age, or the Gilded Era. And the Gilded Era produced for us the robber barons and the benefactors. From that time, those players were in place because most of them had came up in families that were wealthy. One particularly, John D. Rockefeller. John Rockefeller's family was very rich. And so when John D. Rockefeller decided that he wanted to be a part of the rebuilding of America after the Civil War, he found that there was something in crude oil, and the crude could be processed or refined in order to make kerosene. That became a big monopoly for Mr. Rockefeller. But on the other hand, steel was a big thing. And the big thing about steel is that was monopolized by Andrew Carnegie. Andrew Carnegie was very much a part of the railroad, intercontinental railroad situation, wherein goods and products such as agriculture, particularly cattle. The problem with shipping corn or agriculture, grain, that type of stuff across the country by rail is that it didn't have life in as much that cattle had life. And so the those farmers who had cattle, they really needed to get their cattle across country, and particularly in the warmer weather, because the cattle would die. And if the cattle died, of course, that was going to be great loss for the farmers. But what they ran into the problem is because the railroad companies continue to boost the prices in order to ship across country. And when those prices continue to boost, agriculturalists begin to complain that there needed to be some type of commerce control, that these people who were in big business could not monopolize and for themselves continue to get so much wealth of their own. Now, because Andrew Carnegie was making so much money not only on the rail business but also on steel, in order to make not just the tracks that the trains would ride on, but also steel for certain parts that was needed in order to build the train itself. And so there was something that was installed, the interstate commerce control. I'm missing that, messing that up. But nonetheless, it was in order to control commerce. Now, what we have here is we have a great sum of money being moved, and that great sum of money that was being moved, it had to be some way accounted for. And there's where we come in with John Piedmont Morgan, or what we know today as J.P. Morgan. And J.P. Morgan and another fellow named Andrew Mellon, they began to monopolize investment stocks and bonds and those type of things, and they began to grow astronomically as the railroad companies, particularly Carnegie, Jay Gould, as they began to their wealth began to increase more and more and more. They had to find a way that they could have accountability for their money. In order to power these big, what our textbooks call the Leviathans, these big trains that ran from the south to the north, and from the north they ran from east to west. And while they were running east to south, north, east to west, it was also requiring that these locomotives, these trains required fuel. And so John Rockefeller, he began to become so monopolized that he started an oil company called Standard Oil. And Standard Oil Company became such a figure of just controlling all the monies as it related to the oil industry. And so that brought about what was known as the Sherman Act, or the Sherman Trust Act. And the Sherman Trust Act was instituted against the Rockefeller, particularly John Rockefeller, that was saying that he could not buy out other competitors, and so he basically wanted to control the oil. We have another character, Vanderbilt, and Vanderbilt too was a very, very wealthy person. And Vanderbilt, he invested his money also in steel, also in railroads. And so you find that this big business now is starting to build. We're starting to get involved now with labor practices. Starting to get involved now with hiring practices and those types of things. So basically, from 1865 to 1900, it was these still these robber barons that came out of the Gilded Age that still control big business. Now, part of the big business domination was labor, and it was decided that if people lived in these certain homes, that the millionaires or the ones who were monopolizing the business, they also made money by these people having to pay rents in order to stay in their properties. And so what I want to do now is I want to basically start with John D. Rockefeller, and I want to show you today some of the things that Rockefeller, his company is still making billions of dollars today. What we know today as Exxon Station. Exxon Station is a conglomerate, excuse me, of Exxon Station is a conglomerate of Standard Oil. And from Standard Oil, we also had the Gulf. We also had the Pegasus, remember the red horse, the Pegasus, Mobil Oil. When the Wright brothers took their first flight, the fuel that was provided for the flight of the Wright brothers' first flight, Amelia Earhart, anything that dealt with transcontinental travel that required some type of fuel to propel that trip, the Rockefellers particularly monopolized that. So what I want to do, I'm stopped at a light right now, so if I might be able to get it, I don't know. Well, that's the Shell station, and that's not quite what they Rockefellers were into. The Rockefellers were more into the Exxon business. So just give me a moment and let me make a turn here, and I want to show you what's going on in big business today. Boy, this is kind of risky, but bear with me. Let me see if I can get some sunlight so I can get my picture back. If I can, I may not, or well, I may have to get out in order to do that. So, if you can just bear with me one moment and let me exit the vehicle, if you will. And let's see here. And can I get a picture of that? Let's see. Let's see here. Well, walk with me this way. Just walk with me this way. Okay. Let's see here. We get that? Here we go. So this is still a continuation of the Rockefellers' money that's still growing even today. So most times if you stop at a gas pump, that gas pump that you're at is going to be revenues that's continuing going into Standard Oil even today. So what I want to do is I want to take a pause because I want to take you to see where Carnegie is still making money. So I'm going to pause here and I'll be right back. So here you are. This is where or how Andrew Carnegie made his money. Railroad tracks, interstate commerce. The Interstate Commerce Commission is what I was thinking about earlier, had to regulate because they were overcharging people who couldn't afford to have stuff shipped. And so when they couldn't have stuff shipped by rail, then those people who were big business, they would buy out the smaller businesses. And when they bought out the smaller businesses, it made it impossible for the smaller businesses to compete. And so this would be where the steel and the transcontinental railroad from 1865 to I think it was about 1892 the competition was so high that a lot of other business who couldn't compete ran out of business because of their inability to compete. So today, this is what your J.P. Morgan Holdings Bank looks like in Newport News, Virginia. This is J.P. Morgan or Morgan Stanley. And this is what big business has become after the the 1890s, 1865 to 1900. Okay, so I want to take you to one more spot to show you what's been going on in big business since 1865. But this is the J.P. Morgan headquarters for Virginia Newport News. If I can get there, you go. Alrighty, see you in a bit.